Hello everyone and welcome back to another video for the most important event of the year so far. The BLASTtv Austin Major, the EU MRQs I'll be focusing on here. And I'm really excited for these because only 6 spots available in what is a stacked qualifier. You've got teams who live online compared to teams who sometimes struggle online, but you'd consider maybe should be better because they're higher ranked. But I'm here to tell you what you should look out for, who you should look out for. And basically who I think is going to make the major. And of course, with a different era we're in now, with the MRQ and VRS era, rather than the Open Qualifier and RMR era. People still debate about that over and over, but I do think the right teams are in this MRQ for what they've managed to show online and in various other events over the calendar year so far. So we can jump straight into this one. I wanted to give you a quick rundown on every single team involved here. My thoughts on whether they're going to qualify or not. We'll start from the bottom up to just give you an idea on kind of how they are and what form they're in and what I think about their individuals. And we're going to start with Medisport. The main problem with Medisport for me right now is they actually have a really good synergy and I guess team play in general for me when I've watched Medisport play. I think Hampus is doing great work with this team and I think you should be very proud of what he's put together to creep into the RMR, and it was a great run so late. They placed well in Galaxy Battle, which is another tier 2 online event. They placed well in the Yellow Compass qualifiers. They placed well in a couple of CCTs as well, because they've kind of had a lot of invites for that over the course of the calendar year so far. And they've squeaked in. Unfortunately, there is one big weakness here. That's Lumi. I think he's an interesting young AWPer, but all the games I've covered of him, all the games I've casted of him, which is probably about 9 or 10 this year, he worries me. He misses a lot of sitters. I'm talking about a lot of sitters. I really think this Medisport team will ascend once they get maybe like Nabafuzi or something at some point in the future. Who knows? But I do think Lumi is a massive question mark. He can be quite good on the rifle. But he's the main AWPer, and I've seen him miss way too many shots that need to be hit in important situations. So there's some great factors here. You've got Adam B, you've got Plopsky. Even Plopsky to this day is still doing really good work individually for Medisport. So keep an eye out for him, even though he's kind of a name from the past as such, of course, from NIP. It's kind of crazy that he's still around doing so well. I mean, he's actually, you can see here, only 22, right? Pretty crazy. But, you know, people forget how young he still is. I think Medisport won't make it, but at least keep an eye out for the Hampus, Adam B, Plopsky trio, and keep an eye out if Lumi maybe underperforms and misses a few shots he shouldn't be missing. I don't think they make it, though. Ents will be the next one. Obviously, great name value here. Glaive, SDY, Poddy, Kaspersky, Natu. I honestly love this team. I think the fact that the MRQ is not on LAN is a massive pain for them, because we've only really seen them on one LAN ever, this team. And of course they won it. They won that Elisa Masters Espo LAN toward the end of last year. It was a fairy tale, ridiculous dream run. They managed to make it happen. We haven't seen them on LAN since. And online, there's a bit of X factor missing. I think Kaspersky, Natu, and SDY, they're all brilliant secondary stars. They all have the ability to step up and perform behind a primary star. And there isn't a primary star on this Ents team. There are 5 very, very good role players, something that Neokai said to me. And from watching them multiple times over the course of the calendar year, it really does read that way. I think it was actually Robu Johnson who said it on Twitter as well. I think the Finnish talent. Obviously very clued up on Ents. He's very right in the fact that they've got 5 great role players here. They all fit in their role well. They all synergize well, but they don't have a star that can take over the server. You can't expect that from SDY. You can't expect that from Natu. They're just not that kind of player, not in those sort of roles. So I do worry for Ents. They shouldn't be one of the favourites to make it through, in my opinion. I'm actually not going to take them. I'll see if I change my mind actually at the end of the video, because when I look at it again after I've sort of run it through my head in this video, who knows, maybe I will change my mind and reconsider. But I think it's going to be very difficult for them to make it, especially as it's still online, this MRQ. 9 Pandas, they're in a mess right now. I mean, ever since they dropped I Disbalance, they've been in a really weird state of trying different AWPers, and they tried Alv for a little while, ALV. He's a very unknown player from like tier 3 CIS. He played with the team for a little bit, didn't really work. A bit too young, I think, a bit too raw. They tried Chiron as a stand-in for a little bit, as like a hybrid AWP rifler. They were kind of playing a 5-rifle setup like old Cloud9 was for quite a while, actually. That wasn't working for them either. They even tried a Narcos for one tournament as a stand-in as well. But it looks like they are sticking with Moon for this MRQ. And Moon is a great player from the Ruby roster that has been bouncing around the sort of lower tiers for quite a long time. It is worth mentioning to you that he is a guy that has been quite highly rated by many. He's still only 19. He's played in quite a lot of Tier 2 events. He's been around this Ruby team for quite a long time. I think if 9-pounders go for him permanently, that's probably one of the best options out there that doesn't have a buyout. Molodoi has just been bought. Grix probably has a buyout from Aurora, still on their bench technically. And I think Artfrost still has a buyout from Paravision. So, yeah, probably one of the best options they could take. Wrestle is still great to watch. Diladez is very, very stable. Shalfie is the in-game leader. Got a great secondary voice here with Crad, but I don't think like their chances at all to get anywhere near qualifying for the major on this particular occasion for me. Now, one I do love and do think will qualify for the major is Paravision. People have been waxing lyrical about Paravision over the course of the scene, over the sort of talent pool in the Tier 2 scene for the whole season, really. I know even Anders, of course, has been working some CCT over the course of the early part of the year. Loves watching Paravision. I think he's got really great stuff about them. Surprised how well they look while they're such in a sort of young period of their transition as a 5. So I completely agree with that. I think Travis is an incredibly stable player. We could get Travis stickers back again. Already has some with Hamcal, but I think I could be making it again with Paravision. I think James is actually... I'm sure he's got some kind of secondary voice in this team. I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't, provide some ideas. But Kikut's in-game leading, and actually it doesn't really look too bad at all. I think they really understand each other well. Of course, if you know, Destan is involved in this project as well, so it's the Kikut, James, Destan trio that seems to be a great focus group for this roster. Belchinok is actually one of the most underrated players in Tier 2 for me. I feel like he often pops off. He often looks really good. It's a crazy name, Belchinok, but honestly, people won't probably have heard of this guy. But I hope you will have heard of him after this major cycle, because I genuinely think he's very, very good. But he's not really the young, raw star of the team. The young, raw star of the team is Nota. He came from the Rush B roster for the end of last year. Had a bit of a try at Amcal, I think, for a little bit as well. And now he's fitting in quite well with this Paravision team. They've got that raw aim star. They've got 2 stable players, one that can be a bit of an extra star in Belchinok. You've got the leadership of Kikut, the secondary voice of James. James can still AWP pretty well. He's proving that he can do that in Tier 2. I'm quite excited for Paravision. I think they're qualifying for the major. So let's take that as one of the 6 that will make it. As you can see here, these with how the decided matches will work in the final play-in stage, and with how the color code is here for who qualifies and who doesn't, right? So I think they make it. I'm willing to stick my neck out for them. Fnatic, really weird situation for Fnatic here, because they took 2 massive steps forward by taking Jambo, and he fit like a glove immediately under Fear, as you would expect. The 2 Ukrainians teaming up together once again on a different roster. But Crims isn't playing. He has a personal issue that he has to deal with, apparently. Due to personal issues, he won't be playing the MRQ. I do wonder if that's like an excuse for Fnatic. That's the way they drop him long term, because they did say in the tweet that they'll be evaluating his position within the 5. I don't know. I think it's such a shame. I think after 8 years of service in Fnatic, and of course a little bit more before that, if you ignore the Godsent split back in 2016, like 11 years maybe on the roster at this point, if you count that one a bit pre-Fnatic too. Oh, sorry, pre-Godsent too. And listen, he's not a star player anymore. He used to be, not anymore. He's a support player that has been heavily molded into those support roles. No one else did it, so he did it for them. He learned how to play those roles. He's, in the end, tried his absolute best in these roles, in these tough anchor positions like A Ancient, you know, even ones like A Anubis at one point, I think he played a little bit of. He's always in these tough positions that is very hard to hold on to. Sure, he's being replaced as a stand-in only, confirmed, by someone who lives in those tough positions in Borup, but Borup feels like such a downgrade. And if this is a way that the stint of Crims ends under the Fnatic banner, it'd be such a shame. I could be wrong, who knows? You know, Blame F and Castle, of course, the coach of Fnatic at the moment, they'll have knowledge of how Borup plays and might be able to mold him quite quickly, and it's a role-for-role swap, so I'm hoping it's going to be okay. I like to think they'll make it. With Crims, I would have actually said there's a chance. With Borup, I'm really not sure in this short space of time. So I am concerned. One thing I think is a great thing for Fnatic right now is I think Mattis is actually one of the best players in Tier 2 at this present point. Obviously, Fnatic still a Tier 2 team. They're not Tier 1.5 really at the moment. I think the Jambo move will propel them to the top of Tier 1.5, almost like a maybe like a Saw level, maybe a Gamer Legion or Astralis level at some point in the future. I hope for their sake, but right now I'm worried about their progression and what they're going to do because of the Borup edition. I think Jambo's been superb. Blame can still be a bit Blame F-y sometimes. I'm sure you know what I mean by that, but he is, he is entering a lot on certain scenarios, and I'm seeing Fear set him up for entry plays quite often on various maps, like Mid Anubis, for example, on T-side. So I think it's great to see him play a bit more aggressive, and Mattis, I think, has been really consistent lately. So I really hope he takes that form through to the RMR, through to the MRQ. Won't be the first time someone makes that mistake. Bet Boom. And they're going to team here in a really weird position for me. I think Siren, Zorta, Magnagez, Axel, Boomich. It's a great team. Axel's starting to look like his old self again. He's looking okay under Boomich again. Siren's a good role player. Magnagez, I think, is superb. But I do wonder about the level of this team when it really matters in an event like this, when it's a stacked Tier 2 field. I think when they play their best, they do have a slight level above some of the other teams here. Like, they can beat a Big, they can beat a Heroic. We've seen them destroy an Astralis in some online qualifiers earlier on in the year. I think it was the IEM Dallas qualifier that Bet Boom won a really easy one on. I could be wrong. It was either one way or the other. Bet Boom won a game really heavily and then lost a game really heavily. So they can be a really weird up and down team. But I do worry for them. I think Zorta right now is not really the Zorta that I've come to know. And I do wonder if in the future Bet Boom are going to take a gamble on maybe nabbing a Grix from the ex-Aurora team. Maybe nabbing an Artfrost. Maybe even taking Dexter, as we know that he's now not going to be on Falcons anymore in the future with the expected move for Monazy coming through for Falcons. So if Bet Boom took Dexter, I think that's a significant upgrade. I think Zorta can still be very good, but he's having a bit of a mini slump right now. I really want to see a good Zorta in this MRQ to kind of save his spot on the team, because I think there's so many options out there right now for Bet Boom that they absolutely could switch after the MRQ again if things don't go well. Namiga, weird team. I was very high on Namiga toward the Shanghai Major MRQs, if you remember. Last year, I said that they and Sangal would make it through. They both disappointed in the end, Sangal especially so. I think they're a weird team right now, Namiga. I think one of the few teams in Tier 2 this year that never made a single change. They've kept the same five: Leah, Khan, Risky Bob, Xanta, and Zwei. I would describe them the same. I would describe them as Xanta can be a very good player. Risky Bob is a stable player that can be one you can rely on sometimes. I think Leo is actually a great in-game leader alongside Box, the coach. And I think Zwei is still a guy that will eventually get an upgrade to the likes of a VP, to the likes of a maybe even a switch to Bet Boom at some point. Like, you wouldn't think they'd need them right now. I don't think there's a big difference in that switch if he was to make a switch like that. But he would be playing on the Boom, which is obviously a more respected name as such, really, at this level. So I think Zwei's got that upgrade potential in him. Do I think Namiga make the major this time? I don't think so. I think they're still got the same issues I've seen from them in the past. And I think Khan is very hit and miss with the AWP. He can have his games where he absolutely pops off and have games where he's a bit invisible. So I'm not sure they have the form that I've seen the form for them this calendar year, where I can consciously and comfortably feel like I can pick them to make the major, especially with 6 slots alone. OG, again, a team in a bit of a weird spot. I've watched quite a lot of OG this year so far, and they can look sometimes really, really solid and have great mid rounds. They can look like they're all on the same page, and suddenly the switch can be flicked, and it looks like they've never played together in their life, and they're all over the shop. I'm not sure what the issue is with that. I hope they can iron that sort of stuff out. I think Spook is a great individual. I think Crizzen is an in-game leader that will eventually find his way to a bigger organization. A great example for me is that if Astralis do move away from KD and Rifle in-game leading, you take Crizzen. And maybe then Hooksy comes back and saves OG, or maybe Hooksy goes to Astralis, and then Crizzen, Crizzen gets to stay for a little bit. Or if Crizzen does get an upgrade, it could be even to another international project rather than a Danish team, right? But, Bars I think is alright, but I do question his level. Fiku is, again, very up and down individually, very volatile. I think Crizzen did fix his form somewhat toward the end of last year, but, again, I think while he's fine, people still question why on earth is Fiku still on OG. I think whenever anyone watches them play. But I think he's alright at the moment, and probably the best option they have for this team. And the AWP role, of course, which I can't miss out. They trialed Afro for a little bit so far this year. Didn't have amazing results. They tried Nico Doz, trialed Nico Doz, and had much better results and more consistency, and actually were one of the best teams on Ancient in Tier 2. I think it was OG and Navi Junior, which had the best win rates on Ancient in Tier 2 so far this calendar year. Around about those two, I'm pretty sure, from memory, off the dome. So, I think Nico Doz is a great pick. I'm glad he's finally been signed officially after his trial. They have upset value here. They can beat a 500. They can beat a Saw. They can beat an Astralis, I think. Definitely keep an eye on them. They're one of my underdog wildcard picks that could make it through. Right now, I've only picked Paravision. I might change my mind and pick some more later as I finally complete my thoughts on all the teams. But again, if Paravision are my only ones that I'm definitely putting in there somewhere as of so far. OG, I think, can be a good wildcard pick. Bait. They actually haven't had an amazing year so far. I think they've won like one CCT. They're always around that level, doing well and winning these events, keeping their VRS very relevant. But I do worry about their LAN experience after what we saw from them, of course, at the Elisa event last year. They can be, again, another pretty volatile team. I'm willing to stick my neck out for them one more time here, because I think it's about time this organisation makes a damn major. It's been so long. They've come so close in previous RMRs, like the Rio RMR, I think they were 2-0. It might have been was it the Copenhagen RMR, they were 2-0 as well? They've definitely been 2-0 in the Swiss in 2 separate RMRs in days gone by. And they just couldn't get it over the line. I think they've got a good team across the board now. I think Kenzazor was actually a really, really good pickup. I think it's stabilised them somewhat and made them a threat in nearly every Tier 2 tournament they play. They can have bad losses, sure, but Alex can be a very, very good individual player, can pick up the slack when MPL as a sort of IGL star player, piece of the team, it does underperform. NPL's not been as hard on the fragging as he was last year, actually. I'm not sure if they've changed setups somewhat necessarily. Maybe made him not as much as a primary star, not calling around himself as much, but he can be a very, very important fragging piece even as the captain for this team. Hedrick can be a little bit too defensive every now and then. His style hasn't really changed a whole lot, which I think is a bit frustrating when you watch him. But I think Essential is that raw star. He was very, very bad at the beginning of his stint on Bait. I haven't swapped him out. I think it's the right call. He got a lot better as time went on. And he's kind of like improving like Mzinho improved on Mongols, right? That's usually the example I make, which a lot of people have heard me say in the past. I probably even mentioned it for the last RMR as well, last major qualifier. Like a sort of Ukrainian Mzinho in a way, that he plays all the bad roles and it looked a lot better in them in the modern day than he used to. The team does worry me, but I'm willing to stick my neck out for them. They are my second of 6, Paravision and Bait. 500 are weird. I'm sure you guys can maybe read into me saying weird and what that means in many different explanations for that one. They are good. They are good as a team. Whatever you may think about them, they are good as a team. I think Rainwaker is very, very stable at this level, especially online. Oxygen can have his moments. Spellin and Cirque are actually better than I thought they would be individually. Spellin in particular. I thought he was quite bad individually toward the end of Global Offensive, but he's become relevant again with this 500 roster. It seems to be working really, really well. Cirque is doing all right. I really don't think he's much of a liability. I think he's an absolutely fine AWPer for this particular roster. I wouldn't replace him with like a Poison or a Denislav, for example. I think I would keep Cirque here. But Ships is the main man. I mean, he's still the main man as well, which is pretty incredible. He had those famous carry performances back in the day for Windigo and other Bulgarian rosters of days gone by. He's looking superb again. And 500 are very, very dangerous. They played one LAN this year. They look dangerous. They've had lots of online events this year. They've always looked dangerous. I think Ships will be a worry for every single team that faces him. I don't think they're going to qualify, but I think they might get close. Big are very strange. I really don't know how to feel about Big. I mean, especially online. Don't forget this, obviously, as I said, multiple times being played online this tournament, which is a shame, obviously. Big worry me online, I've always have. Crimbo's dipping in form a little bit. JDC is not, can't take up that slack every single map he plays. Kyubi is kind of learning his role within the team. Not sure how comfortable he is. Hyped has been actually alright, and I've been happy with what I've seen from him. But again, like, another thing that I think some of my casting colleagues have mentioned that sometimes you have to remember is that these teams not every single team here exists to be #1 in the world. They exist to represent their country, place well in events, stay relevant in the scene. That's what Big are. You want Big to be back in Cologne semi-finals and Cologne finals and major playoffs and stuff like that, but that's not reality for them at the moment. And I would be wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if they didn't qualify. They could be caught out by a lot of teams here, and I'm going to be really curious to see how they're going to do. Because I've seen them lose to BC Game really easily. I've seen them lose to Heroic really easily, 500 easily. I think they've played a couple of games against the likes of Ents in the past as well, and they've kind of been taken down. So they worry me a lot. Got great pieces. Do they have enough to qualify? Going to be really hard for me to say. I'm not taking them as a third until I finish my thoughts of the video, and we'll see how I feel. One team I think is going to qualify is Heroic. I still think they've got a good enough floor level here, Heroic, to be a good enough team to make the major again. There are question marks about this team, in fact, more than you'd actually think. I think Linus is a good in-game leader. I think they work really well with Saw, of course. That combination is stunning. I think Saw is one of the best coaches in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. Pius is a great AWPer, but he's not really been as lights out as he used to be in days gone by. I'm actually a little bit concerned about his recent form. I think Pius is borderline upgradable at this point, which does concern me a little bit. Youngstar has some games he pops off. Xcloud has some games he pops off. Tania is the most consistent player on the team, and I think that's the thing that has shocked Heroic the most, because Tania has been so damn good for them. They haven't even integrated Nilo yet, whether that's down to his personal issues or like not feeling like he's ready to make that step up, even though he's made that transfer from Medisport. The Nilo situation is a really weird situation, which we probably won't hear any more news about until post MRQ about whether he's actually going to play for Heroic or not, and when. But I still do think Heroic have a good enough floor level. I think Tania has been brilliant, as I said, and kind of a breath of fresh air for this Heroic team. I'm looking forward to seeing how they do. I don't think they're amazing right now, as I've said. They do worry me somewhat, but I'm still think they're a relatively comfortable pick for me. So I'm taking Paravision, Bait, Heroic. Now, BC Game. BC Game are a really tough one because they won one of the most recent CCTs, and they looked really, really good. I think they've got a really great level here. And a reminder, of course, the old BC Game with the likes of Letcrow and Guardian and those pieces, like Satsanito, I think, as well at one point. They had a really bad VRS level for quite a long period of time. I think it was like 70th or something like that. They bought the X-Bleed core, which had a higher VRS, like 45th or something, and they made the most of those invites immediately, which is really critical for them. And they won, as I said, won a couple of tier 2 events, looked really good. But there's a couple of factors here that I'm concerned about. It's the consistency of Cypher. He can be very up and down. It's the fact that Nork looks to be a little bit revitalized under Nexa's in-game leadership, but again can be a bit hit and miss. I think Nexa has been calling very, very well though for this team, so keep an eye out for that when you watch BC Game at the MRQ. I think his mid-rounding has been really good as well, and his late rounding too. I think they make the right decision the majority of the time. And it shows that these pieces that Kassad put together way back when were very, very viable. I think Prime Tap's obviously the most unknown player of the team here, but I think he can be very good. I think you might be surprised at how good he could be when you've got the other stars of the roster. Of course, everyone knows about Jacob's recent struggles, admitting to the scamming as such, and the not giving back the money he owes to people. People say, "Oh, why isn't he dropped by BC Game? Why isn't he that? Why isn't he this?" But that's not like it's not like a jailable offense what he's done. He's just like not fulfilled a promise to people. and he realizes how fucked up that is. He's decided not to. He decided to, come out publicly and say immediately, "Listen, I'm so sorry." Sure, it maybe shows what kind of person he is, that he's only come out and admitted it publicly once he's been exposed by the members of the community that he did wrong by. But either way, I hope he's fixing himself. I can have sympathy for someone who's going through like personal issues like gambling problems. I hope he's fixing himself. I hope he's got the right people around him, and I hope that he performs well for BC Games. I think they can be a very good upset team here, and there's genuinely a chance at the major for this roster, but I'm not picking them, I don't think. Saw. Now, surprisingly, I'm actually picking Saw to make the major again. I was shocked that they looked so decent with Azuru and Sejot. I mean, sure, I was quite high on Sejot during his time on Sprout. I've always loved Azuru when he was on Endpoint, of course. He was probably their main good player. Sejot fell off a little bit on Endpoint, but Azuru was still excellent. Excuse me. But I thought Saw would fall out of relevancy immediately once they lost their full Portuguese core. But you know what? I've got to give it to them. I've got to give it to Mutiris as well. I think purely the fact they're still doing really well with Azuru and with Sejot has raised the stock of Golden as a coach and Mutiris as an in-game leader. Especially Mutiris, I think, as the in-game leader. I think they've still got something about them. They've still got a good floor level, and their floor level should be enough to beat some of the teams that are straggling at the bottom here, like a Medisport, like a Met9 Pandas. Anyone can beat anyone. I want to make sure I repeat this a number of times in this particular MRQ. Truly think anyone can beat anyone here on their day. But I think Saw have a good enough floor level, and I'm going to take them to make it. So we've got Saw, we've got Heroic, we've got Bait, we've got Paravision. There's 4 that I'm willing to commit to. Gamer Legion, 100 and 110%. I'm taking them. They're going to be my 5th team to make it. I think Slend, ZTR, Towson, PR, and Rez, so much fun to watch. I really think this Gamer Legion is a really enjoyable team to keep an eye on. Kind of like around that 3D Max level of looking really decent. They can make playoffs, but maybe not push much further than that. They still need, obviously, a little bit of extra experience. ZTR's individual level does worry me. But I think they're such a good, solid level from Towson, who I really thought couldn't make the step up from Tier 2 to Tier 1, but has, and has looked genuinely okay. PR, who's just been a stunning star player to watch, by the way. I think he's destined for a team like FaZe one day, and I don't want to tempt fate, because I know Ash doesn't want to lose another one of his stars that he's nurtured on Gamer Legion, but I think he's stunning to watch. He's just got incredible first bullet accuracy, incredible crosshair placement, and Rez being included now as well. Love this team. We've using a bit more of these guys. You don't need to tell me to tell you about them with how they've played in Tier 1 so far this year. They're good enough. Sen could be a bit up and down. I'd love to see them maybe grab a Grix or something like that one day. I think that he's definitely upgradable, but he understands the system of the team and plays to a really solid level. And I think Rez and PR revitalize this team. And I think ZTR and Ash as a base, with Towson as a great sort of support player. Really good in the clutch as well, by the way, Towson. He's won a number of really important 1v1s, especially in PGL Bucharest. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how they play. I think they definitely make the major. That's my 5th team to make it. And I'm not taking Astralis to make it. That's a blockbuster for me. They have looked so wishy-washy, so uninspiring with the Canadian in-game leadership. They have a level they can reach, which we've seen. It can beat the likes of a FaZe. It can look okay, but Device is more hit and miss now than he's ever been before, which is a shame to watch. He can have his moments, but I'm just not 100% confident in him. It just matters to me that he's just enjoying his Counter-Strike and that he's healthy at this point, because I just don't think this Astralis team, I don't necessarily think he's enjoying this Astralis team at the moment. Sarah's a brilliant player. I think even if his numbers aren't amazing, he's one of the most important parts of this Astralis right now. Stown and Yabi don't seem to be synergizing as well as they used to under Cadian's previous systems. They seem to be at odds very often, and Stown is not doing good enough work numbers-wise as a star player as he should be on this team. Which is why I am genuinely of the opinion Hooksy's been out of the game for however long. It might be time. Like, if they don't make it through the MRQ, it might be time to ditch Cadian. Hooksy is not much worse than Cadian on a rifle. In fact, I'm willing to stick my neck out and say Hooksy on a rifle is better than Cadian on a rifle as an in-game leader. So I think that's where they should move next. It would reunite Hooksy with Yabi as well. But I'm actually thinking they're not going to make it. In the gauntlet of online Counter-Strike, They look all right on land sometimes, but can look awful on land. Online, they can look like they're nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. And I really have a feeling they're not going to make it. I think the craziest thing about this MRQ for me is that I think Astralis can lose to every single one of the teams in this qualifier. So it's going to be really, really tough for them. And I think we could be the Astralis hate watchers that definitely do exist out there. I think they're going to be rejoicing again, in my opinion. But anyway, here's my confirmed 6 as we've come to the end of this preview. Gamer Legion, Saw, Heroic, Bait, Paravision. I've got to pick a 6th. And if I was to use my heart over my head, maybe I'd pick a Fnatic, because I love watching Jambo and Fear synergize, and I think Jambo's an incredible AWPer to watch. If I was to use my heart for Ents, I would say I think they've got great name value here, and there's a chance they could roll back the years and Glaive could make a major again. I could say that Boomich could make a major again. I could say that Tabson could make a major again. I could say that OG. This 6th team is so difficult for me. And it's all coming down to who's the most stable as a 5, who's been playing together the longest, who's felt the best for me from watching them. Fnatic having that last minute change of Borup doesn't instill me with confidence. That really does concern me. I do think they can make it, but I just can't pick that in good faith with Borup being added in so late. I can't pick 9 Pandas. I can't pick Namiga. For me, I'm going to say it's between OG, BetBoom, and Ents. And I might surprise some people here. I'm going to say OG make it. They're going to be my 6th team to qualify for the major. It's really tough, but as I said, I just trust in Crizzen. I think they can occasionally have rounds where they just completely lose synergy, look like they never played together anymore, or played together before, and that none of them are on the same page, and the communication is all over the place. But I trust in Crizzen to get something done here. I think they've got a level that can do something. They could easily go 0-3. Genuinely, they could go 0-3. I'm not even joking. I know I'm sitting on the fence here and covering both bases, but I really think they have a chance to make it and also bomb out. I'm going to take a gamble on them. I think the toss-up between them, BetBoom, Fnatic, Ents, and maybe even 500 and Big are very, very similar. And as I said, this MRQ is incredible because I really think anyone can beat anyone. But that is going to be my sort of preview done. I hope I gave you some insight to some of the players maybe you haven't heard of before, maybe some players that you're looking to keep an eye on going into the MRQs as someone who could be a star for the future. There's definitely a few in here, and this one will be a fascinating MRQ to watch. For now, keep in touch with me on my socials and stuff. I've got a couple of events that I'll be working over the course of April. Some decent events as well, which I'm very happy to be involved with, so keep an eye out for some announcements for that. And make sure to catch up on Twitch as well, because I'm doing a lot of co-streaming these days for PGL Bucharest and probably future PGLs as well. And always trying to stream some qualifiers for those PGL events when I have the opportunity. So thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the major cycle. I'll be back with a pick'em video. It's almost that time again to feel like you're an idiot. Me, not you. Bye.